Well, you see, I never go anywhere to listen. I go to ask questions because in the quality of a question is the quality of the answer. You see, I've learned to deal in truths, not ideas. I've learned that if you attach an idea to a truth, you have no problem with the future because truths last forever. A truth, the clarity of your thinking, dictates the clarity of your action. A vision is what you see. A value is what you do. Those are truths. You can go on forever and argue with those, and I don't care how many ideas you have, but if the ideas you share are not locked into truths, there's really not a lot of sustainable value with what you do. You know what number 2 at Marriott was? This is kind of fun. Well, you know this one. You got an iron ironing board in every room. They said, we want an iron ironing board in every room. We didn't know so many guys ironed their clothes who travel for a business. And our housekeeping can't get you an iron because somebody else has it. They've kept it 3 days. No, they stole it. Put an ironing board in every room. Now, we know you might take the iron. We know you won't take the board because we order full-size boards. Not like Best Western. Our boards would hold your coat up if you know. At Marriott, they said, what do we do if they steal the iron? I said, charge them $80. They said, we can't charge $80 for a $28 iron. I said, you're not charging for the iron. They said, we're not. I said, no, you're charging to cover up a felony. You know, sometimes I just give up on these major companies. I'm saying, a felony? Yeah, you steal an iron in 29 states, it's a felony. It is? I said, yeah, why are you worried about stealing it? It's just convenience purchase. They said, where'd you get that idea? I said, I have a $200 rope from Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. You say, why is any of this important to us? I say significance is important to us because we've got to understand the marketplace better than before, and we've got to understand our one thing better than ever before. If we look like, act like, and sound like anybody else who plans to be in the travel business, if we look like, act like, and sound like any technology that could quote seats on an airplane, you and I are going to have a problem. We have to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. And I'm not saying be better, I'm saying be different. And I want to talk about that in the short period of time we have this morning. But I want you to take a close look at your marketplace. This is what your and my market looks like. 17% of my customers and yours are what we call premium. They are total travel experience customers. They call us because they want a significant experience to a destination that's of great value, and they're not going to shop us anywhere else. They're not going to go to the internet to shop. 17% of the market is not going to go to the internet to shop, and if they do, they're not going to buy there. They're going to come back to us. And why are they going to come to us? Because we're not quoting seats on airplanes and the rates and the fares to go somewhere. 27% of the marketplace is what we call parasite travelers. Don't get me started on these people. They're not going to heaven.
Tom Winninger, Bullseye. How do market leaders consistently hit the mark? Tom Winninger, Bullseye. Unique strategies to think smart, create value, and build a culture of difference. Getting one step ahead of the customer. Specializing in customized presentations for audiences all over the world. Tom Winninger, a clarity of focus, a captivating style, and a wealth of insight.
Number 1 is response. Domino's has always been response. It has always been at your door in 30 minutes or it's free. And even when we took that away, we still maintained that marketplace position. And at Domino's, I've always joked about this. They charge for the delivery, $14. Pizza is free. And then build the technologies around it. You know, interestingly enough, here about 3 months ago, I called Domino's Pizza on Vernon Avenue near our home in Minneapolis. And the kid picks up the phone by the 3rd ring. You want response. And says, Ginny, how are you? I said, wait a minute. This is not Ginny. This is her father. Kid over the phone, barely over 17 years old, said to me, what do you want? I said, I need to order pizza. He said, where's Ginny? I said, can I ask you a stupid question? How did you know it was our home? He said, Mr. Winninger, we are a high-tech operation. We have IntelliData on our phones.
Tom Winninger, understanding the critical importance of differentiation. More than 20 years experience. Helping market leaders consistently hit the mark. Setting them apart in the marketplace. Wininger's clarity explains how tools and techniques create market uniqueness with superior services, products, and customer support.
So I rush to my door, I open the office, and here is a kid, 5'6", standing in front of me, peering right into my eyes, 5'6", white socks, high-water pants, hairy tie, and I'm going to spend 45 minutes with this kid talking about office supplies. Kid had a zit right in the middle of his forehead. I mean, no, a zit. One you would lunge for? I know, graphically. I'm not a storyteller, but graphically, one that if you were standing in front of it, the projectile is incorrect. Yeah. But boy, I kept my eye on him. He said, Mr. Wininger, I feel terrible about this. I said, what do you feel terrible about? He said, it's a beautiful afternoon, and you're meeting with a guy who you think sells office supplies. I said, that's right. He said, but my manager knows you, and he's heard you speak a number of times, and he said if I ever got a chance to spend a few minutes with you talking about how you built your organization around a sales strategy, it would be worth a lifetime for me. What do you want? He opens a plain pad, and he says, what's the biggest sale you ever closed, and how did you close it? 45 minutes later. I'm doing my speaker thing. And he's writing as fast as he can. He is taking notes. And every once in a while he energizes with, wow, that's good. Got another 8 minutes. Now, I'm a business speaker strategist. You know, to me, a lot of this isn't funny, but we see funny things in it when we look back. And he said, well, we're closing out, and all of a sudden my phone rang, and it was Lynn, and we have a wonderful 22-year relationship. And it was my private line, so I knew who it was. And I answered the phone, and she says, you're late. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm with somebody who loves me. And now, she takes this in good stead because she's an LLC, and she's got a royalty factor on anything I say that relates to her. Well, I don't get this at home. I don't arrive at home with kids' pads in hand, standing in the yard, taking notes about what America's market strategist is telling them about what they ought to do in school to get straight A's, you know. Well, the kid says to me, you know, I'm embarrassed here. I've taken so much of your time. I said, that's all right. He said, could I ask you one question, though? I said, yeah, what's that? The simplicity of the question dictates the clarity of the response. It's the truth. He said, what's the number one office supply you run out of most often and most frequently? I said, and I acted like I knew because I really didn't, but Elizabeth had already left. I said, well, it's paper. Copier paper. I thought that's a simple answer. He said, could I have the privilege of asking you one more question? I said, yes. He said, what do you do when you run out? I said, well, Elizabeth goes to Office Max and buys paper and brings it back. He said, does it happen often? I said, no. He said, does it usually happen on a nice day? I said, yes. He said, does she come back right away? I said, never thought about it. He says, how many reams of paper is she buying? I said, you're way over your question thing. He says, do you get the point? I said, what is that? He said, you've got to take the soft cost of her going to Office Max to add it to the real cost of the savings you get because you ran out. And that's the biggest problem I have to deal with clients like you. You run out. Now, this is a kid with a zit in the middle of his forehead talking to a nominee for America's Entrepreneur of the Year. And I'm taking it. I said, well, I never thought about that. He says, how much paper do you use? I said, I have absolutely no idea. So there's the second problem.
Tom Wininger's strategies have been captured in 5 best-selling books, including Bullseye, Think Smart, Narrow Your Focus, Set a Clear Goal, Capture Market Leadership, and Price Wars, How to Win the Battle for Your Customer. He is an expert in creating value and differentiation. Tom has been featured on CNBC, First Business, Boardroom Reports, Venture, and over 300 trade journals and magazines. Referred to as one of the best minds of our times by Inc. magazine, Tom zeroes in on what really counts.
I don't know what your 5 questions are, but if your best customers or those you want to be your best customer are not asking the right questions, don't wait for them, because in the question they get the education that leads them to the difference that you bring to the marketplace. There's lots of companies out there that do it. I remember about 8 years ago we got a call on the phone from Kodak. It's a great company. And I met in Chicago with George Fisher, and I sat across the table with the CEO of Kodak, and he said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "Yes, you're Mr. Fisher. You run an $11 billion company, and you think you're in the film business." He said, "What?" He said, "You said I think I'm in the film business?" I said, "Yep, you think you're in the film business." Well, I only had 8 minutes. You can take a lot of risk, right? He told me that. He said, "You got 8 minutes, buddy." Well, how much time do you have when you pick up the phone? Not 8 minutes. I had 8 great minutes. He said, "You don't think I'm in the film business?" I said, "No, I don't buy Kodak because I want film. I buy Fuji because I want film. If I'm going to Disney, I take Kodak because I don't want to take Fuji because Fuji's a film company and Kodak is a magic moment company, and I want to take the magic moments in my life I want to remember long after the moments are over." He said, "Slow that down for me." I said, "My youngest is 3 at that time." I said, "There's a truth, George. It's very important for all of us. It's very important for you. It's very important for me. They've been around 2,000 years, these truths. I'll give you one. It's not what I sell. It's what the customer buys that differentiates me in the marketplace. It's not what I sell. It's what the customer buys that differentiates me in the marketplace. If I'm busy trying to figure out what I sell rather than what the customer wants to buy, I will always be competing on a product line that is focused on a price issue rather than a value issue in the marketplace."
Tom Winninger, recipient of the coveted Cabot Award. He's listed in the CPAE Speaker Hall of Fame. Tom Winninger, dynamic, diverse, and in demand.
God bless you all. Thank you very much.
For more information on Tom Winninger, Bullseye Presentations, contact the provider of this video.